American Egyptian Women of Influence podcast aims to be the American Egyptian culture podcast of choice. We believe that our knowledge and our participants' stories will greatly enhance understanding of both cultures. I'm Karen Leggett Aburaya.
Reem Abdalazem Bossaty is a two-time Olympian for Egypt as a synchronized swimming champion in 2008 and 2012. She's the first Egyptian ever to win a prestigious Coleman Cup championship, and she was the assistant national coach for the American synchro team. She was also the head coach at Lindenwood University in Missouri, where she graduated, and where her team won the U.S. National Championship, and Reem was selected Coach of the Year. Born and raised in Cairo, Reem began swimming as a 6-year-old, and we're delighted to have you with us, Reem.
I'm very happy to be here as well. Thank you.
Now, what prompted you as a and maybe you didn't start synchro at 6, but what prompted you to swim in synchronized swimming and not just regular swimming?
At the beginning, I thought it was the music. You know, I loved the music and I thought, how fun is that? You're just in the water dancing kind of thing. And then I quickly realized that it was much, much, much more difficult than that. And that's what pulled me into it. It was a very challenging sport. I had a Russian coach at the beginning who just demanded everything I didn't have, like flexibility and swimming and skills and strength. So yeah, so I think that's why I chose it.
Now, what makes it demanding? Because obviously, the layperson, the audience watching it, it just looks beautiful and effortless.
Yeah, that's what they tell us. You have to make it look easy. It's a lot of things. Like you have to have the power and strength to just keep going for more than 3 minutes in the water with, underwater and back up out of the water. And then you're jumping. So you have to know how to jump. And then you have insane stamina. And at the same time, you got to be flexible, because if you're not, then, you're not able to perform or execute the movements the way you want to. And then you have to synchronize. You have to do all that stuff with a nice smile on your face, or just like performing as easy as you can make it look like, and synchronize with all these other athletes in the water with you, and stay in pattern. You have to stay tight. The lifts are like when you lift a girl up out of the water, they have to look super high. You have to quickly recover out of them. It's a demanding sport.
And what did that sport give you as a girl growing up?
It gave me a lot of things. The first thing I have to say, it gave me a lot of strength. It taught me, how to take criticism to start with, how to handle pain and frustration and disappointment, even on a daily basis, just being in cold water. Like, how do you handle that as a little girl, right? So I always had to be strong. I always had to figure out a way to just keep going. And then it also gave me patience. I learned how to be more patient. I learned how to trust the process as I'm going and not just focus on results, because it's a sport that requires a lot of that. And humility. I think as a little girl, I wasn't, I was just like, the result has to be good. Like, I'm ready to win this thing. And it just taught me how to be as humble as I possibly can, and always be modest, respect my competitors, be an example for other athletes. It shaped my personality in every way possible. I learned how to be a lot of things, and not just an athlete, but also a performer. So,
and how is it different when you came to the United States? Now you'd had some international competitions, but you came and were swimming regularly in the United States as a college student. So you were 18, 19, 20 by that time. How was the sport different in the United States?
Very, very different. First, I realized that, it's just much, much bigger. There's more than, 20 different clubs in the US. And when I first came, that was in 2010, we were like over 10 different universities competing against one another. So that's a lot of also just programs everywhere. So there was more recognition, there were more resources, and more yearly camps, performances, attention in general. And then in the US, you have your own federation, and it's called USA Artistic Swimming actually now. So in general, when you go to the national team, that becomes your profession. You do that on a daily basis. You live in the same city, state, of course. You have, a physiotherapist, a psychologist, everything. Yeah. And
is that why you chose to come to the United States for college?
No, I was a naive 17-year-old who was just excited to like continue the sport, continue being an athlete. And at the same time, I wanted a big challenge and I just wanted to continue studying. So I thought, oh, look, in the US, I can do it in the same place without having to, drive for an hour and a half and wake up at like, it was just so much easier and more efficient to do it in the US. And that's why I left Egypt at that point.
And what was it like when you were the assistant coach for the U.S. team? What do you think you were able to contribute to that team as an Egyptian, as opposed to not simply, but you were obviously an expert in your sport, but what were you able to contribute because of your Egyptian background?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, I got a little bit of both worlds, right? I had been living, before I joined the national team, I had been living in the US for a good, for 6 years, not just as a student athlete, but also as a coach. And before I was an athlete in Egypt, and I basically grew there. I learned how to become everything that has to do with being an athlete and performer and all that. So that taught me how to not just like do things from scratch, but when I'd be coaching, if someone is struggling a little bit with like technical stuff and they don't know how to make something better, I was always able to fix that or to make that better or to kind of guide them into how they can make things work, because I had my coaches in my club, but we had way less resources. So I always had to figure out a way to help myself get higher. What do I need to do? How do I choreograph a routine? All that stuff. So I know that was one big thing. And another big thing is the bigger picture, right? I'm an Egyptian. I'm not an American who's had it kind of, I don't want to say had it easier, but everything around you is more... It's just more organized. It's more collected. Obviously, there's a difference between Egypt and the US. So kind of guiding my athletes and letting them be aware that there's another, world out there outside of the US, it automatically just makes you more exposed, more well-rounded as an athlete. So you're more humble, and you also don't take things for granted as
What's next for you?
Finding my center. I'm just working on grounding myself again.
Well, we wish you all the best. This has been a wonderful conversation, and we thank you very much for your time, and look forward to seeing where you land next and which pool finds you next.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a great conversation with you.